Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. I guess it's already 2:03. We'll start in just a minute or so. I think last time I might have said that, I'd like to take a class to talk about Kaddish. So I think I'm going to delay that at least one more class. Rabbi Wohlgemuth doesn't really have a section on that anyways. But it is something that maybe people are interested in. But so I think we're gonna do something else this class, and we'll continue really with the book, and we'll do chapter 9, which is Shabbos and Yanta, Shmona Esrei, both kind of the regular Shabbos Shmona Esrei and the Musaf Shmona Esrei. Also, before we begin, just see if anyone else comes. I think the plan is we'll continue till Shavuos, and then we'll take a little bit of a break. So that would mean this class and plus 2 more. We'll have to try to cover as many important topics as we can until then, and then we'll take a little bit of a break. Okay, so chapter 9, at least in my edition, is page 165.
Green book is 207.
Thank you, Louise.
The green cover.
But we're starting from the very beginning of chapter 9. So whatever edition you are for now, it shouldn't be hard to find, just the very beginning of chapter 9. Okay, the Amidav Shabba. So Shabbos davening. So before we start reading, Shabbos davening is longer than a regular day. Talk about Shabbos morning, let's say at least first. Right, but it follows the same basic structure. So you have brachos in the beginning, then you have psukei de zimra. It's a little bit longer psukei de zimra, but it's, the same basic idea. Shema and the brachos before and after Shema. Again, those brachos are a little bit different, a little bit longer, but very similar. And then we have Shmona Esrei, laning, but again, we have laning. We spoke about laning a little bit when we learned about laning. But the big differences on Shabbos are, one, we have Musaf, a whole nother Shmona Esrei. And the regular Shmona Esrei, so to speak, of Shabbos, let's say the Shacharis Shmona Esrei Shabbos, is also obviously very different than a weekday Shmona Esrei. So again, there are a lot of small pieces of Shabbos davening that we could focus on, but we're going to focus on sort of the main ways that it is different from a regular day davening, a whole davening, and that is in its 2 Shmona Esreis, 4 in the whole day, but and 2 in the morning. Okay, so let's begin chapter 9. Rabbi Wohlgemuth says, before we continue with the next section of the prayer book, we will pause here to discuss the Amidah, what we call the Shmona Esrei of Shabbos. Now, obviously, to make a note here, right, we refer to Shabbos Shmona Esrei. That's obviously what's the right word? That's a misuse of the word. Shmona Esrei means 18, because the original Shmona Esrei original Amidah had 18 brachos. Shabbos day, misnomer. Thank you, Linda. That was the word I was looking for. Right, Shabbos Shmona Esrei only has 7 brachos. So, this is a bad joke, but right, you wouldn't call it the Shabbos Shiva. That wouldn't sound good. So, the real technical word is Amidah, the standing prayer. But colloquially, we use Shmona Esrei. I sometimes do, others do, even though you're right, it's really a misnomer, Linda. Okay. So Rabbi Wohlgemuth writes, usually all 3 Amidahs in a day are identical with only slight variation, right? A regular day, Shacharis Mincha Marav, the Shmona Esrei, basically the same. Minor differences, you have Shalom Rav versus Sim Shalom, but basically the same thing. On Shabbos, however, we have a different Amidah for each service. On Friday night, we say Ata Kidashta. In the morning, Yismach Moshe. In the afternoon, Ata Echad. Now, this is different than Yandev or Rosh Hashanah, or Yom Kippur, right? Yandev, it's the same Shmona Esrei, Shacharis Mincha Marav. On Rosh Hashanah, it's the same Shmona Esrei, Shacharis Mincha Marav. It has a different Musaf, But Shacharis, Mincha, Marv are the same. Yom Kippur, Shacharis, Mincha, Marv are the same. Only Shabbos has different, quote unquote, Shmona Esreis, Amidahs, for Shacharis, Mincha, and Mariv, which is interesting.
You kneel on Yom Kippur.
That's true. We have Ne'ilah. That's true. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Continuing Rabbi Wohlgemuth. When the men of the Great Assembly introduced the Amidah, they created a weekday Amidah suitable for every day of the week, including Shabbos and holy days. I wouldn't have formulated exactly like that. We'll see how that sentence is formulated in the new edition. The only variation would occur Shabbos and holy days. He means Yandev, when you would add some text to acknowledge the special sanctity of the day. If you forget and say the regular weekday Amidah on Shabbos, you'll fulfill your obligation as long as you add something about Shabbos. Let me just say that line. That line is certainly correct. If someone by mistake would daven a regular Shemona Esrei on Shabbos, so the Gemara says that does fulfill your obligation as long as you mention Shabbos in some way, meaning just like on Rosh Chodesh, we insert a mentioning of Rosh Chodesh in Ya'aleh V'Yavo in Ritzei, right? Or on Chol HaMoed, we insert Ya'aleh V'Yavo and we say B'Yom Chag HaMatzos Hazeh. So similarly, if let's say you would say a regular weekday Shemona Esrei, if you don't mention Shabbos at all, then that can count as your Shabbos Shemona Esrei. But if you would say a regular Shemona Esrei with Atachonin Ladam Da'as, Rifa'enu, Bonei Yerushalayim, Samach David, etc., all the regular Shemona Esrei, but you inserted in Ritzei, you made up some text. Elokeinu V'Kevosenu, Ya'alev Yavo, Biyom Chag, no Biyom Hashabbos Hazeh, whatever. So b'diavad, you'd fulfill the mitzvah. That would be good enough, as long as you mention Shabbos in some way. But the point is, lechatchila, that is not what the sages instituted for us. They said, we don't want you to daven the regular Shemona Esrei on Shabbos. We're going to write for you a new Shemona Esrei, a different Shemona Esrei. And so the question is, before we read further, I want to hear if people have thoughts, right? Why is it? Why did Chazal not want us to say the regular Shemona Esrei on Shabbos? Why did they write for us a new Shemona Esrei? Again, of course, we understand they certainly would add something for Shabbos. So why didn't they just keep the regular Shemona Esrei and add an insertion for Shabbos? Let's say benching. Benching is the same benching on a weekday and Shabbos, but we add a paragraph for Shabbos. We add an insertion, some addition for Shabbos. So why for Shemona Esrei did they not do this? Shemona Esrei, they said, no, we're basically, again, the first three and last three are the same. That's true. But the whole middle section of Shemona Esrei, we totally cut out and we insert something else. Okay, so Louise is already saying something, but maybe there's some others who want to. Yes, Sandy.
Is it sort of like you have special clothes you wear for Shabbat, so you have a special Shemona Esrei?
Excellent. There definitely is truth to that. Just to show that the day is different. Obviously, it's more special, more holy. So there's a special Shemona Esrei, special davening for Shabbos. Yeah, there definitely is. There definitely is truth to that. That definitely is, I think, part of the reason.
I was going to say it along what she just said, but the uniqueness of Shabbos.
Right. Okay, that's definitely true. Louise, I don't know if Louise can speak. She added in the text, right? There is an idea that, in general, we don't make personal requests on Shabbos. So the middle section of Shemona Esrei are the requests. So in general, we don't make requests on Shabbos. I want to discuss a little bit why that would be. I see our Erev team is joining us. So let's. Anyone else want to add anything? We're going to read Rabbi Wohlgemuth. Rabbi Wohlgemuth is going to expand on what Louise said. Okay. Rabbi Wohlgemuth writes, the rabbis thought, nevertheless, that the recital of the ordinary Amidah on Shabbos or a Yandev might deprive the worshiper of the special joy that he is supposed to experience on these sacred days. Why is that? In troubling times, such as times of unemployment or other hardship, the spirituality of Shabbos is often overwhelmed by these mundane problems. When we can't enjoy Shabbos, we're so worried, preoccupied, anxious about something, which is not what we want. We really want on Shabbos to be able to forget about our weekday worries and enter a different world, so to speak. So the rabbis instituted the special Amidah for Shabbos and Yandev to strengthen this spirituality. Petitions that would sadden us are omitted, while we retain petitions that bring us closer to God, such as would say, right? To say it differently, right? If you have, right, in Shemona Esrei, it's including requests for Hashem provide us with good health, with a living, rebuild Yerushalayim, redeem us, protect us from our enemies, Re'evan Yenu, see our affliction, right? That's what that bracha means. So if Baruch Hashem, you're not suffering from any of these things, so you say these brachos and you have good health, you're not thinking about it so much, right? But if someone is in need of refuah shlema, or is in need of parnasa, or is suffering some other way, right? So these requests will bring up all of the things that we're lacking or that we're suffering. And this is why, in general, there's a general rule that we don't make personal requests. Shabbos is supposed to be me'ein olam haba. We're supposed to feel almost as if, we're not lacking anything. We have everything. Whatever we're worried about during the week, we're not worried about on Shabbos.
Rabbi,
So,
what about
yes?
what about the requests that women make when they light candles to take, watch over the family and
Yeah. I don't know. I hear. I guess that's
that's an answer
Yeah,
too.
but
right
It's
before.
not Shabbos
Right.
yet.
it's not
Right.
Shabbos yet. We say those before we open our eyes.
Right. So maybe that I was going to say something like that. Honestly, so I don't know when and how women do it exactly, but
Well, at least that's what I do. You say
that's
what,
as
any of
we're.
that
I
kind of
guess that's
stuff?
as we're ushering Shabbos in. That's as we're
Right.
ushering Shabbos.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I never stop asking for things. Very greedy.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
but how am I going to echo Linda's question?
Okay. So okay.
Make
So
a Bisha
I'll
for
get
the
to I'll
Holy
get to Linda's question. I'm not gonna have a full answer, but I'll address that in just a minute. So again, that's our general kind of orientation on Shabbos, and so that's what Rabbi Wohlgemuth suggests, and there's certainly early sources that say so. That's why they cut out the middle part of Shemona Esrei. We don't want to be asking Hashem, give us, help us make a living, cure our sicknesses. We don't want to be thinking and talking about, the challenges of life on Shabbos. Certainly is true. What Sandy and my mother also said is just the whole day is supposed to be different. So one of the ways we make it different is how we daven. The Ramban says that the phrase Mikra'e Kodesh, holy days of gathering, which is how the Torah refers to Yandev, and I think in this week's Parsha Shabbos also, actually. So that part of the way we make Shabbos special is by coming together with special davening and Torah reading and Torah study. So there's truth to that as well. Linda asked in the chat if we're not allowed to make requests on Shabbos. So how do we say Misha Berachs? So it's a good question. I would want to. I can look into it a little bit more, but it is a little bit of a tension, right? In some ways, it's not really right that we say Misha Berachs, and right. The truth is that is the reason why the Misha Berach concludes, right? I have an artful sitter, but there's a line that says, and on the Sabbath you add the line, Shabbos similizok refuah krova lavo. I believe this comes from a Gemara actually. Right, we end up and we say, let's read the article translation. And though the Sabbath prohibits us from crying out, may our recovery come speedily. So we say the Mishaberach, and then we say, and even though we really shouldn't be asking for this on Shabbos, please Hashem bring refuah shlema. So I'm not sure if that's a satisfying answer to you, but it is recognizing there's something which is a little bit against the spirit of the day, honestly.
Maybe
yes, Steve.
every
Yeah.
day we should have come on up for others, friends, family, somebody who may be in need or sick or ill. And even in good times, we should be cognizant of those issues for people we love.
You are, that is true. Yeah, that is true. Right, so we do ask a few things on Shabbos, but it's right, it's minimized, and it was too hard to tell people they couldn't ask for anything. So we do have a few things like Misha Berachs, etc. The main thing though is that, again, we are supposed to be in a positive, peaceful state of, satisfaction. I'm not sure if that's the right word. So, like for sure, a person's not supposed to cry on Shabbos. Sometimes it's not in your control, but a person shouldn't engage in things if they know they're sad that can make them cry. So we have some requests, some tefillos that have become accepted, and hopefully they don't ruin the day, but but on the other hand, it should be balanced with the feeling on Shabbos that we have everything. The world is great. The world is perfect. It's almost like we're in Olam Haba, and we certainly don't want to focus on that which is lacking. Okay, and so that is, again, one reason, one motivation behind the change in Shemona Esrei. Okay. I hope if you have a siddur, please open up your siddur. And we're just going to very simply look at the 3 Shemona Esreis of Shabbos. We'll start with Mariv, that we say Friday night. If you're using an Art Scroll siddur, which is what I happen to be looking at, it's page 338. So the Shemona Esrei begins on Shabbos like any regular Shemona Esrei. The first 3 brachos, the opening brachos, are the same. The last 3 brachos are the same as a regular Shemona Esrei. And then there's one special Shabbos bracha in the middle. Again, if you're using the Art Scroll siddur, it's page 340. It begins at Takidashta. And the way the Art Scroll sort of presents it has like 3 paragraphs. If you have a different siddur, it might break up the paragraphs differently. It's because it's all one bracha, but the Art Scroll breaks it up into 3 paragraphs. So you have Atakirashta, then the paragraph of Vayechulu, Hashemayim Va'aretz, and then you have the paragraph that begins Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoseinu Ritzevim Nuchaseinu, and concludes Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos. So the first kind of just basic thing I want to point out is that Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoseinu, that paragraph does appear in every Shabbos Shemona Esrei. So for example, hold this page with one finger and then flip to Shabbos morning Shacharis Shemona Esrei. So Shabbos morning Shemona Esrei, again, has the same opening 3 and concluding 3 brachos, like every Shemona Esrei. And then it has, again, the middle section, which is different. The middle section is one long bracha. I'm looking at the Art Scroll siddur on 424. The Art Scroll siddur breaks up this one bracha into 4 paragraphs. But again, that's just how the printers choose to present it. It's one bracha. And again, the last part, though, Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoseinu Ritzevim Nuchaseinu, right? That's the same. concluding Baruch Atah Hashem Mikadesh HaShabbos. We can look at Mincha very briefly, just very quickly. Mincha of Shabbos in the Art Scroll Siddur, it's page 5. I'm looking at 518 or 516 to 518. So again, you have this middle section, and again, though, it ends with Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoseinu, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos. So the point is, every Shabbos Shmona Esrei, we're not talking about Musaf right now, Arav Shacharis Mincha, again, has the same opening and same closing 3 brachos, like every Shmona Esrei in the world does. It has the same core middle bracha, right? It has Elokeinu v'Elokei Avoseinu, our God, the God of our ancestors, accept our resting on Shabbat, sanctify us, gladden us, purify our hearts, grant us the Shabbat. Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Shabbat. Blessed are you, the Lord, who sanctifies the Sabbath. So every Shmona Esrei on Shabbos has that paragraph, and each Shabbos Shmona Esrei, though, right, has a different poetic beginning to the middle bracha, right? That's what's different. What's different on every Shmona Esrei, like Rabbi Wohlgemuth pointed out, each Shmona Esrei is different. The difference lies in the poetic introduction or poetic beginning of the middle bracha. Sort of the meat and potatoes of the middle bracha is the same, right? But each Shmona Esrei of Shabbos has a different poetic introduction. That's, I guess, how I would put it. And these poetic introductions were presumably written after the Gemara. So in the days of the Gemara, it could be that these Shmona Esreis were identical. But a little bit after the Gemara, these sort of poetic introductions to the middle section of the Shemona Esrei were added. Okay. Before we talk about these poetic introductions, but does everyone just sort of see that structure? If anyone has any sort of question about that, please let me know. Okay. Well, if not, let's go back to Rabbi Wohlgemuth. So we're the third paragraph in chapter 9. Why do we have a different Amidah for each service on Shabbos? In the very first prayer books, those of Ram Amram Gon and Rav Sadia Gon, from the 9th and 10th centuries, a different Amidah for each prayer service on Shabbos is already indicated. So it goes back to at least then to have these different versions. The differences were introduced probably in Gaonic times, since the Talmud never mentions them. So sometime between the year, let's say 600 to 900, these differences developed. Because Shabbos has 3 entirely different aspects. Each Shemona Esrei is focused on a different aspect of Shabbos, and we want to acknowledge each one in a separate service. Okay, what are these 3 aspects? On Friday night, the theme of Shabbos is the creation of the world. So Shabbos is associated with the creation of the world when God rested. So that's what the Friday night poetic introduction is about. You sanctified the day. Tachlis Maseh Shamayim Va'aretz, the completion of your handiwork of heaven and earth. As the verses say, may God completed creating heaven and earth, and he rested on the 7th day, etc. So Friday night is focused on Shabbos as connected to creation and Hashem as creator. Okay. I just turned the page in Rabbi Wohlgemuth, in my edition at least. Next paragraph. According to the rabbis, the Torah was given on Shabbos. So on Shabbos morning, we speak about receiving the Torah in the paragraph, Moshe rejoiced. Yismach Moshe. So Shabbos morning, it's about Shabbos being wrapped up with the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai, and Hashem gave the Torah to us. He specifically gave Shabbos to us, which happened at Har Sinai. So that is the theme of Shabbos day. Again, Yismach Moshe b'matnas chalko. Moshe rejoiced when he received his portion. Ba'amdo lefanecha Har Sinai u'shnei luchos avanim hari bi'ado. And he stood at Har Sinai holding the two tablets. And it said on them, one of the Aseret HaDibrot is keeping Shabbos. And then I'm reading in Rabbi Wohlgemuth again. And again in the afternoon, Mincha, we emphasize the Messianic age. Well, there will be a time when everyone will accept God and carry out his will. Shabbos is supposed to be Me'ein Olam Haba, is a miniature, is an echo or reflection of the ultimate redemption, time of ultimate redemption. So Shabbos is also associated with Mashiach. And so so Shabbos of Mincha is kind of viewing towards that. Ata echad v'shemcha echad, you are one and your name is one, etc. And sort of we're yearning for the day when the whole world will recognize your unity. And so Shabbos Mincha is about Mashiach. So we have creation, the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai, and Mashiach. So those are the three different themes in the Shemona Esrei of Shabbos. Okay.
Rabbi?
Yes, Kenny.
Well, this is definitely different than Shlosh Regalim when Shachris, Mincha, and Marav are all the same Shemona Esrei.
Exactly, on a regular Yandev, and we're gonna actually that'll be a good transition. But right on Yandev, Pesach, Shua, Sukkos, Shachris, Mincha, Marav are all exactly the same. And with that in mind, let us turn to or any other thoughts or questions or comments about Shabbos Shemona Esrei. We're gonna go eventually to look at the Yandev Shemona Esrei, but any other thoughts?
I have a question.
Sure, great, thank you, Linda.
You know the thing how on Shabbos every day you're supposed to make 100 brachas. Do the brachas in Shemona Esrei count? And is that
Yes, absolutely.
And is that like a reason to have differences? Whereas although I guess the same thing would hold for Yantav. So
the same thing will hold for Yantiv, but I think
Yeah.
for that 100 count, if I understand your question, we would count if it would be the same bracha repeated, we would count them also. Like when the commentaries talk about this, so they say on a regular day, if you daven all of davening, you're basically by definition you'll have 100 brachos because each Shemona Esrei is 18. Someone would say 3 Shemona Esreis a day. So even though you're repeating the same brachos over, they count towards that count, Linda. So, but
I didn't know. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes,
Right.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, let's look at Yanta
Rabbi?
Shemona Esrei. Oh yes.
Hello.
Yes, where you been?
You mentioned that the 3 Shabbos middle sections have this introduction, poetic introduction, and the middle one, the middle section, talks about getting the Torah and the mitzvah of Shabbos. And so it's interesting that it reads that poetic piece reads like the type of poem or midrash which in liturgy that leads up to a quote, and it does in fact quote the Torah. It says "V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et Shabbat," as opposed to Vayachulu,
or as opposed to Zachor Shamor. You could have imagined it saying.
On Friday night we quote a passage about the creation, and God rests on Shabbat. God is the time of the world. And then in the middle section we quote a passage from the Torah about Shabbat as well, which is V'shamru. But the passage we quote isn't the passage which talks about God giving the mitzvah of Shabbos at the time of Matan Torah.
Yes. Let me. Yeah. Don't worry, Louise. I know what Rayuben was asking, and I heard him, and I'll share the question. So many ask the following question. I don't know the first one to ask it, but many ask the following question. Let's look at Shabbos Shachar Shmona Esrei, Shabbos morning Shmona Esrei, and let's read it slowly. So I'm going to be beginning with Yismach Moshe. So in the art scroll, it's 424. Okay. Yismach Moshe b'manas chelko. Moshe rejoiced in the gift of his portion. Ki eved ne'eman karasalo, for you called him a faithful servant. Kliel tiferes barosho nasata lo. You placed a crown of splendor on his head. Ba'amdo lefanecha al Har Sinai, when he stood before you at Har Sinai. Right, the crown of splendor is either the rays of light coming out of his face, or all the Jews had crowns at Har Sinai. Right, all these poetic lines, they can be interpreted in different ways. Okay, but then it continues. Ushnei luchos avanim horid biado, and he brought down 2 stone tablets in his hand. V'chasuv bahem shmirat Shabbat, and written in them on the tablets was the mitzvah of keeping Shabbos, right? The 4th of the 10 commandments is Shabbos. And similarly, it is written in your Torah. Quote. So now, if we're now going to quote a verse from the Torah, right? So what pasuk would you expect the Shemona Esrei to quote? You would expect it to quote that pasuk of the 10 commandments, either as it appears in the book of Shmos, Zachor Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho, or in Dvarim, Shemor Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho. But that's not what it quotes. It quotes a different pasuk from, I think it's Kitisa, V'shamru v'nei Yisrael Shabbat L'Asot Shabbat L'Dor Yisrael, which is a wonderful, beautiful passage. But it's just not, it's not what maybe you would expect. So the question is why? So I've seen different suggestions. I don't have one that I love to present. Actually, I think Rabbi Wohlgemuth actually mentions this question. No, am I? Yes, actually. So I'll give that as homework to everyone. Rabbi Wohlgemuth also discusses this question, this problem, in the coming pages. You can read it, and he has at least, I think he has 2 suggestions, and you'll see, maybe you'll think of a different suggestion, but something worth thinking about. Okay, let's look at Yandev Shmona Esrei. So I'm looking at in the Art Scroll Siddur on page 662.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Hello again. I just thought I'd mention that it happens to be that the idea of picking the creation and the commandments for the 2 passages that represent Shabbat will also represent itself in the Kiddush on Friday night and the Kiddush on Shabbos morning, the way some people say it. Down.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Which is another interesting point. I mean, you see that elsewhere, for example, in Kiddush, how we sort of focus on different themes, different part of the day. Yeah. Okay, so in Yandev Shmona Esrei, again, the same opening, the same closing, 3 brachos, and then there's a middle section or middle bracha. What is in this bracha? Ata v'chartanu mikol ha'amin. You chose us amongst all the nations. You loved us. You elevated us. You sanctified us. Vatitein, going to the next paragraph. Vatitein lanu Hashem Elokeinu b'Ava, and you gave to us, enjoy the wonderful holiday of whatever, and if it would be Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, etc. And so remember us well on this holiday. That's what Yalav V'Yavo is about. And then you have the concluding paragraph, V'Hasienu, which grant us the blessings of this day. You who have given us this day, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim, the Lord who sanctifies Israel and its times, meaning its holidays. So what is one theme, or I'll let people look at it a little bit. Are there ideas in the Yandev Shmona Esrei that are not present, or certainly not as prominent as in the Shabbos Shmona Esrei? Or vice versa. Again, obviously they're going to be different. Obviously, on Yandev, we're going to say, thank you, Hashem, for giving us the Yandev. We're not going to be, on Shabbos, you say, thank you, Hashem, for giving us Shabbos. But do you see differences? So I think one big difference that many note, maybe Rabbi Wohlgemuth himself points this out. Oh, let's just read Rabbi Wohlgemuth. I'm sorry, I forgot we were supposed to be reading along with Rabbi Wohlgemuth. Rabbi Wohlgemuth writes, when we compare the Amidah of Shabbos, we're in just the next little section entitled the Amidah of Yom Tov in mine. When we compare the Amidah of Shabbos with the Amidah of Yom Tov, we notice a few differences. On Shabbos, the first of the middle blessings begins with the theme of Shabbos. We talk about the day, Shabbos. On Yandev, however, we first declare the closeness of the Jewish people, quote, you chose us from among all the nations. Then we approach the main subject, the holiness of the day. So there is a greater stress, certainly, in the Yandev Shmona Esrei of Ata v'chartanu, that we are chosen, that we are the chosen people. I don't want to say it doesn't exist at all in the Shabbos Shmona Esrei. You can find it, but it's not nearly as prominent. So the question is, why is that? Why is there a greater focus in the Yandev Shmona Esrei that we were chosen and made special and different and holy, and there isn't as much of a stress of that in Shabbos? So I'll also give you the homework if you want to. You can see what Rabbi Wohlgemuth will write. I'd like to suggest something, though, but I want to hear if it's okay. So Louise is strengthening the question that Shabbos was a special gift to the Jewish people, right? Only the Jews. So you would think there'd be just as much of a stress that we're different, special, holy. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or ideas of why there should be this difference. I would have said that the reason for this difference is that even though Shabbos was given uniquely to the Jewish people, but really theoretically and ideally, right, it could have been given to the entire world. And maybe it should have been given to the entire world, or maybe, the world didn't accept it, right? But really, what is Shabbos about? Primarily, Shabbos is about Zecher L'Maaseh Bereishis, recognizing Hashem as creator, that the world is his, to take a day to sort of step back from our own creative activity and recognize him as the creator. So that really is an idea that, applies to all of humanity. Hashem didn't give that mitzvah to everyone, but really ideally, all believing people, all human beings who believe in God and as the creator can relate to that and can in theory could observe that, even though you're right in the end of the day, Hashem only gave, I mean, Louise is right. Hashem only gave the mitzvah to the Jewish people. But, so to speak, it didn't need to be that way. That's right. Louise saying you're right. It's a little bit, it cuts both ways. Not only are not Jews not obligated, right? But in theory, a non-Jewish person is not supposed to keep Shabbos. It's a unique sign covenant between the Jewish people and Hashem. So the Jewish people were the ones called to be the witnesses that God is the creator. But and therefore Shabbos is given uniquely to the Jews who are the witnesses that God is the creator of the world. But that message, on some level is supposed to be brought to the entire world. But the Shalosh Regalim, those are uniquely Jewish, right? Pesach, right, is the God redeemed us from Egypt. That is totally uniquely Jewish, right? That's part of our history, our story, our identity. That by definition is part of the unique bond between Hashem and the Jewish people. Sukkot is how he, led us through the wilderness, and Shavuos is all about the giving of the Torah. So those are bound up in the fact that we are different and that we were chosen, and just cannot apply it all to any other nation. So if you would ask me, that's how I understand it. So the quality of Bechiras Am Yisrael, that we are the chosen people, that there's something special, unique for us, that is stronger on Yandev than on Shabbos. That's what I would have suggested. There are other suggestions. I'll share with you just another idea along those lines. So the Gemara says that there's a halacha which not many people know, and sometimes it's difficult, puts people in awkward position. But the Gemara says that on Shabbos, you can invite non-Jewish people to join your Shabbos meals. Nothing wrong with that. But the Gemara says on Yandev, so the sages enacted that generally that should be avoided. Again, I'm not getting to the technical rules of it. The Gemara says if someone comes, you don't kick someone out, but as a general rule, there's a hesitancy to specifically invite non-Jewish people to come on Yandev. Now, the Gemara gives a very technical reason. The Gemara gives the reason that on Yandev you can cook, you can turn up the fire, right? But you're only allowed to do those malachos on Yandev to cook food to provide for Jewish people who are celebrating the Yandev. But you're not allowed to cook to make a neighborhood welcoming cake to bring over to your non-Jewish neighbor on Yandev, right? Even though you're allowed to bake on Yandev, and if you're baking the same cake for your family to have for dessert on Yandev lunch, that would be fine. But you can't bake a cake because that's a malacha, which normally would be forbidden. So on Yandev, we permit it so that you can enjoy and celebrate Yandev, but you can't bake on Yandev if it's specifically for someone not Jewish. Okay, that's the halacha. So the Gemara says, well, there's a concern. If you have not Jewish people over, you might come easily to, boil some water for them for a cup of tea. And you're not allowed to do that. That would be breaking Yandev, even on a Torah level. So there's a fence that, let's say, generally to try not to invite not Jewish people on Yandev. Not everyone knows that halacha, and again, sometimes there are difficult situations, and that could be discussed individually. But that's the general rule. So the Gemara presents it in sort of very technical terms. But I wondered, is there also some other thinking behind it, that Shabbos, Chazal saw there's nothing wrong that invite non-Jewish people at your Shabbos table, spread them the lessons and teachings of Shabbos. But our Yandev meals, that they wanted really, to be Jewish events. That's something that wasn't really shared with the world. That's something that's supposed to be special for the Jewish people. Okay, that's some crazy idea I had. No way to know if it's true or not. But anyways, okay.
Hello, Rabbi.
Yes, Reuben. I don't know if you're going to comment on what I just said, but yes,
I
what do
mean,
you want to add,
First
Ray?
of all, I would comment that you're not crazy, and it's a beautiful suggestion because there is a strong universal aspect to Shabbat,
Exactly.
even if there's rabbinic commentary on universal aspects to Yom Tov as well on occasion. But the connection between the particularistic Jewish power of Yom Tov and the chosenness that goes with Yom Tov is also expressed in the halachic creation or determination of Yom Tov.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. So wait on that point, Ray Euban. Okay. Now, Ray Euban almost stole my thunder. Now, for comparing Shabbos and Yandev, so there is one major difference that is often discussed. I know there are some people here who know what who maybe they don't know that I'm referring to it, but know of this. And does anyone know what I'm referring to? The main difference between Shabbos and Yanta Shmona Esrei has to do with the concluding bracha of the middle section. Shabbos we conclude Baruch Hashem Mikadesh HaShabbos. Yantiv we conclude Baruch Hashem Mikadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanim. So what is the difference? I'll let someone call it out. I might have to call in Rabbi Euban. Very good. Yisrael, thank you, Louise. Right? On Shabbos, we just say, blessed is the Lord who he sanctifies Shabbos, Mekadesh HaShabbos. On Yantif, for some reason, we say, Baruch Hashem Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanim. He sanctifies Israel and the holidays. So why it should just say Mekadesh Hazmanim, he sanctifies all the holidays. Or on Shabbos also he should say he sanctifies Israel and the Shabbos. Why is there a difference? So there's an answer often given, and often it's cited in the name of all kinds of people who lived relatively recently. But the truth is, it's the Gemara. The Gemara itself says the reason, says the difference. And the Gemara says the difference is that Shabbos, God sanctifies, and no human being, no Jew or other human being is involved in sanctifying Shabbos. Whether we want it to be Shabbos or not, when the sun sets, it becomes Shabbos. We have no say in determining when Shabbos will be, if it will be Shabbos. It's straight from God. Whereas Yantiv is based on a calendar date, and the calendar is not totally determined by God. Hashem gave the authority to the Jewish people, as represented by the Sanhedrin, to set the calendar. Now we have a set calendar, but even our set calendar, which repeats itself, was originally established by the Chachamim. So they may have done it a long time ago, but it's also, man-made, so to speak. And before that, when there wasn't any set calendar, each month was determined by the Sanhedrin, determining, based on the appearance of the new moon, etc., and other considerations of when to make Rosh Chodesh, and thus affecting when Yantiv would be. So Yantiv, so that's why in the bracha of Yantiv we reference Israel, because Hashem sanctifies Mekadesh Yisrael, he sanctifies Israel, and then from that sanctity, we have the power to then sanctify the Zmanim. It flows through the Jewish people. Mekadesh Yisrael v'Hazmanim. So that is the difference in the brachos, right? And there are two different models. There's some things that they're holy because Hashem decides that they're holy, and He wants to make them holy, and without human participation, partnership. And there's some things that we need to make holy with Hashem. He invites the Jewish people and everyone to increase the Kedusha. Let's follow up afterwards, Linda. But Rabbi Hellman is just adding, it fits into our whole theme that the specialness and chosenness of the Jewish people and our special position is more tied up with Yantiv than it is with Shabbos. So even though, again, Shabbos is also a special gift to the Jewish people, but somehow it's more relatable, more adaptable. It's somehow, in some level, all humanity can be included in Shabbos. But Yandev is something special for the Jewish people. Yes. Okay. Any thoughts, questions, comments? We did not get to Musaf, which I really wanted to, so we'll have to do that next time. I'm just looking if there's a small little brief idea on Rabbi Wohlgemuth. Okay, let's do one last thing in Rabbi Wohlgemuth. Difference between Shabbos and Yantiv Shmona Esrei. So it's about a page into the section of the Amidah of Yom Tov. And again, I'm going to ask people for their thoughts. The paragraph beginning, there is another difference. In mine, it's the very bottom of 167. There is another difference between the Amidahs of Shabbos and Yom Tov. At the end of the blessing of Kedushas Hayom, that means the middle section. On Shabbos, we say, V'hanchilenu Hashem Elokeinu, and Hashem granted us, gave us, Ba'ahava uvaratzon Shabbos Kadshecha. He gave us with love and willingness. It's not the best translation, but almost like love and desire. Shabbos. Okay, so those are the qualities from how he gave us Shabbos. He gave us Shabbos with a sense of love and ratzon, willingness, desire. However, in the parallel passage of Yom Tov Amidah, it says, "V'hanchilenu Hashem Elokeinu b'simcha u'v'saso modei kadshecha." He granted us, he gave us the holidays with joy and gladness. And so the question is, what is the difference? That Yantiv is characterized with the qualities of simcha and sason, and Shabbos is characterized by ahava viratzon. And this does cut to the difference of the feelings, the experience of Shabbos versus Yantiv. Yantiv is simcha v'sason, and Shabbos is ahava v'ratzon. I'm not sure. Is anyone? How would you describe the differences between those two? That Yantiv is joy, and Shabbos is love. Right? If we could boil it down even to one word. That apparently is the difference. I don't know. Any thoughts? What is the difference between Shabbos and Yantiv in terms of the sort of the experience of the day? Okay, Linda, I see said pleasure you would associate with. You're saying that they're both that, or that's more one than the other, Linda. Let me just make sure I didn't miss.
I wondered if ratzon somehow, yeah, like may it be your pleasure to do such and such.
I actually think it's probably not like a precise translation, but I think you're right. Meaning the words that I would associate with ratzon, which is the Shabbos word, right? I would associate more of your pleasure, your pleasure, desire.
As if you were speaking to a king or a queen, may it be your pleasure to blah, blah, blah. Kind of like that.
Yes, I agree. So we're saying, and God, you granted us Shabbos with love and with your pleasure, so to speak. I like that a lot, Linda. So, but Shabbos we say is characterized. It was given with joy and gladness. I don't know, any thoughts of the difference between the two of them? So I'll just begin, unless someone if someone unmutes themselves, I know you want to say something, but in my mind, the difference is as follows, is that Shabbos, the experience of Shabbos, right, which is bound up feeling close to Hashem. It's a day that's more spiritual, more close to Hashem than on a regular day. But it's a sense more of Shabbat Shalom. It's supposed to be a sense of peace, serenity, wholeness. That's the protection. That's the sense of Shabbos. The experience and sense of Yandev is different. It's more of joy, excitement, exhilaration, ascent, newness, change. And so those are both, obviously those are both sets of positive experiences, but in some ways they're actually very different. In some ways they're almost opposites, right? Meaning Shabbos is I am here, I'm grounded, I'm safe, I'm protected, I am whole. There's a sense of love, meaning of comfort, of warmth, and so that's ahava v'ratzon, that Hashem granted it to us and gave us, and the experience of it is one of love and of pleasure, of alignment, of will. We are together. There's no conflict that needs to be reconciled. Yes, right, exactly. Whereas Yandev is about joy, celebration, excitement, which is sort of the opposite of serenity, right? It's the opposite of peace in some ways, right? Because it's actually that there's great movement and change and growth and excitement. That's in some ways that's very different. And I think that those are true. Those are in general sort of the different feelings of Shabbos and Yandev. I would say so. And so that one phrase is reformulated. In Yandev we say V'anachleinu b'simcha v'sason, with joy and excitement and gladness, whereas on Shabbos we are given it the ahava v'ratzon, with love and with acceptance.
But you do have Oneg Shabbos also.
You do. But even that, I think actually if it's Oneg, again, Oneg is more of pleasure than joy. So Oneg is more passive. We sort of just enjoy it. Whereas it's not simcha, it's not celebratory in the same way. I see some interesting comments. We'll continue the discussion of the difference between Shabbos and Yandev next time, and also talk about Musaf, because we never really got to Musaf, the whole idea of Musaf, of why we have an extra Shemona Esrei, and I think there's some important ideas there as well. So thank you everyone, as always, for participating, for your ideas, and we'll see everyone again next week. Have a good end of the week and good Shabbos if I don't see everyone.
Happy Lag BaOmer.
Yes, happy Lag BaOmer tonight.
Rabbi.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you.